Hello, my name is Marc Jeffrey, and you are listening to episode 14 of the Marc Jeffrey Podcast Show, brought to you by MPC Solutions. Hey, what's up, podcasters? Thank you for joining me once again, episode 14 of the Marc Jeffrey Podcast Show. Thursday, May the 18th, and have I got one crazy show lined up for you this week. After an evening down the pub last Thursday with my next door neighbour Blaze, he insisted on coming on this week's podcast show. So, don't know where it's going to take us. I don't know how long it's going to take us, but it is going to be one fine, awesome show. Before that, Jason has been in touch. He is the guy that sends me music from bands he promotes, and he wanted me to tell you about the UK tour of the Armoires, I think that's how it's pronounced, Plastic Souls, and Huxley Rittman. They are three American bands currently touring in the UK. The tour commenced on May the 16th at the Cavern Club in Liverpool, and it ends at the Tank Inn, St Helens, on June the 16th, 2017. I will put the links up to the bands and the tour on my show description notes. But first, here are the Armoires with their new song, Double Blades.
Double blades for you, my beautiful daughter.
On this episode, I want to introduce to you simply my neighbour. Good evening, Blaze.
Good evening, Mark. Sorry I'm late. I got stuck in traffic there.
A long way for you to travel, mate.
Yeah.
What did you have for breakfast this morning?
As it happens, I don't eat breakfast at the moment because I'm on this kind of 10 hour a day. You know, I only eat between 10 hours, so between 12 and 10 at night.
Really?
Yeah, it's like the easiest way to actually drop weight without doing any exercise or anything. So it's a good start.
You have to tell me about that because I'm at the process now. I've got to start losing some weight, mate. I've really got to start losing some weight. I had my ankle operation, and I've just piled on loads of pounds, and I really want to lose some weight, but I cannot be asked. I cannot be asked.
Apparently, this is like because your body is on its own rhythms and mechanisms, and you know we're whatever the opposite to nocturnal is. I forget the word, but so if you eat between certain hours of the day, 10 hours, I think 9 or 10 hours, I think is optimum. Then your body kind of goes into a fasting state type thing when you're not eating. So it burns fat before it burns anything else. So yeah, it's a real cheap way of almost cheating. It's certainly kickstarting any kind of weight loss you might want to do. You know,
I was thinking about doing this new diet that's out, or that I've heard about. It's the 5-in-2 diet. So it means that you have 5 days of food, and then on the 6th day and the 7th day, you don't eat. You don't eat nothing at all. 2 days of fasting.
Yeah, I've heard about that. The way that I'm doing this 10-hour thing as well, what's nice about this is you can, well, according to the studies they've done on mice, so I don't think they've done too much on humans yet, but you can actually cheat. You can have 2 days of cheating. So it actually kind of works out nicely. You can do your Monday to Friday. Skip breakfast and try not to eat the late night snacks and that, and then you know on Saturday and Sunday you can sort of pig out without going overboard.
You're looking good though, man.
Thank you.
You're not like obese like me. You're looking good.
Yeah.
You've not been very well recently though, have you? I was lucky to have you in the studio here because you've had a bit of the old earache and stuff.
Yeah, I got an earache on last week Friday, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Anyway, this diet thing that you're doing, how does it? How does beer come into things? Because we went down the pub last Thursday, didn't we? And we was talking some deep stuff for about 2 hours last week down the pub. And Blaze was like, you know, Mark, you've got to get me on one of your podcasts. So this is what you're here. This is why you're here. You've come in. I haven't got a clue where we're going to go tonight. I haven't got a clue how long this episode is going to last for. It could be 10 minutes. It could be 20 minutes. It could be an hour. I really don't care. We're going to sit down and we're going to have a bit of a chat, and hopefully you at home will enjoy what we're talking about.
Cool.
So,
look, beer. I mean, I don't think they included the beer part of it in the mice study. So yeah, I'm not too sure about it. And you know, from what I've heard people talking about, they've never said there's anything wrong with having a few beers. Thank God.
It's a few beers.
Yeah,
but when you've had like a few buckets of beer, wow, it's a bit of a difference, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll just steer clear from the buckets.
So, anyway, mate, you guys at home, you may be wondering about Blaze. You might be wondering about his accent.
That's my real name for.
Eh?
Just for starters.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of an unusual name, Blaze, isn't it?
Yeah.
Before we go any further, do you want a beer?
Yeah, I'll have a beer.
You have a beer? Hold on a minute.
Yeah, cheers. I probably shouldn't. I'm on antibiotics after my...
Don't worry about it,
my
mate.
ear infection.
I'm into this new craft beer at the moment. Yeah. We got a Haverwood craft beer. We got an IPA. Or what's the one that you've got there?
What have I got here? I've got the Purple Panther.
Yeah.
It's a Heatherwood craft beer company.
Which would you prefer, an IPA or what you've got there?
Well, let's go with a little alliteration here, the Purple Panther.
There you go. Well, you can open that up there. So, Blaze, people at home are wondering your accent. Tell the people at home where you're from.
Well, I'm from South Africa, born in Durban originally. But I moved to Johannesburg when I was 13, went to university in the Cape, went to Taiwan after that, then went back to South Africa, to Cape Town. So yeah, I'm quite nomadic, and now I find myself in Landrake, sleepy Landrake in Cornwall.
In Cornwall, which may I add is southwest UK, not a million miles from London. You have to say that on podcasts, you see, because you've got people over in America and all around the world that haven't got a clue where Cornwall is. Yeah. Cornwall is, they've never heard of it. All they know of is London. And they say, have you visited? Do you know the Queen?
Yeah, as if you were in London, you would know the Queen anyway.
Yeah. So other than your earache that you've had this week, how has your week been? Have you had a good week?
Yeah, I've been pretty good. I mean, been working. You know, the thing about having this sort of earache is that you can't walk around and what have you. But I work on software, so unfortunately for me, I can still do my job. So I've still been working. So yeah, it's been pretty solid. Other than the fact that I can't make any sudden movements because of the vertigo.
Yeah.
It's been fine.
Well, I've had an amazing week,
yeah.
To be fair. I've had a really, 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 really good week. And what's quite weird about it is what's made my week so amazing is episode 13, I had my first ever negative feedback.
Oh, nice.
Now, you may be asking why it's been an amazing week from negative feedback. Well, it's all down to a girl called Catherine. I went to Glastonbury in 2010, and one of Naomi's mates is called Catherine, and she's how can I put it? She's very outspoken. She says what she thinks, and if you don't like it, she don't really give a toss.
Yeah.
And we was doing a bit of feedback last week on episode 13, and she basically said that Naomi sounded amazing. And I said, I just put down, well, what about me? And she says, well, you sounded, and I won't swear because I don't like swearing, but she said you sounded Sierra Hotel Indio Tango. Right. So breaking it down, I sounded pretty crap, you know? And I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, you were just waffling on about nothing, and you really did sound rubbish. And I was just honest? Like, well, yeah, she was honest.
Well, she said she was being honest. I'm not saying I thought you sounded.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, I get a lot of positive feedbacks. I mean, a lot of my friends listen to my podcast. They've had loads and loads of positive feedback. And when somebody gives you some negative feedback, I just, my talons come out. Do you know what I mean? I was just like, what do you mean? What do you mean? You know?
But, you know, before we sort of were off air, before we came on air, the way you said you took it and that sounded, I mean, obviously the first impulse is to kind of recoil and that. But I think the important thing is how you internalize that. And if you're honest with yourself and say, actually, you know, she was correct, then you can move forward. And it's probably better feedback than what your mates were giving you, because invariably someone doesn't want to tell you it didn't sound too good.
Well, the thing is,
might be more valuable.
Yeah, try talking in the mic a little bit better, please. You're fading out a bit, man. I've got a new microphone. Sorry, here, you see, and you're cutting out a little bit.
I've got to kiss it.
Yeah, but basically, well, that's it. I mean, she gave me some negative. It wasn't all negative. There was a few positives there. But the problem is what people don't realise is when you do a podcast or a radio show or anything in life, you know, a lot of time and effort goes into it, and it is your baby. Sure. So when somebody says to you, you sound shit, you know, it's kind of like the talons come out. But I've learnt over the years that any negative is a positive. Sure. In the sense that you've got to, these negatives that come in, you've got to listen to them. And I did listen to her.
Within reason. I mean,
I did, you can't have the odd person, you know, it can't be like one person, 20, 30 people say you sound good and then one person say you sound rubbish. You know, but you have got to listen to these comments. And I did listen to the comment. And like I say, she said I sounded very, very plain and I sounded boring when and she could tell that I was reading. Not the interview, may I add. The interview she said was good. It was the bit at the beginning. So from now on, I'm changing. I'm being myself.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's I'm no longer going to read a script, and we'll see if that makes makes a bit of an improvement.
Yeah.
So we talked about you, Blaze. You know, coming from South Africa. When you moved over here in the UK, what are the pros and cons of living over in the UK compared to South Africa? Do you think?
Well, I mean, the obvious one is safety. You know, South Africa can be a great place to live and the lifestyle is good and all the rest of it. And I'm probably not saying anything new. Well, I know I'm not saying anything new by saying that.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the security. I'd go fishing with the mates when we were living back in Cape Town, go fishing for the weekend, and I'd constantly be worried about, is my wife and daughter okay back home, and I should, phone in. And if you go to a remote place where you don't have cell phone reception, which is kind of the idea when you want to go traveling sometimes, you feel worried, you constantly have that knot in your stomach. And but here I never get that. And I think for people who haven't experienced that, it's like a fundamental element of your being. I think I don't think people realize how, if you've lived in England your whole life, or in places where you've never felt that insecurity, you don't realize what impact it has on your, as I say, your very existence. So that's the fundamental difference.
So it is really rough over there. I mean, are we talking about the whole of South Africa, or just certain parts? Because, I mean, parts of the UK are pretty rough. Do you know what I mean? You go to places like Manchester and Liverpool and some parts of London. It's not all, glory. There is some real rough parts in this country.
To be fair, I mean, I'm sitting in, like, as I say, Sleepy Land Drake, and it's probably not. And to be honest, I haven't traveled. I mean, I've been to London quite a bit. And I remember going for a walk with my mate, and we walked through a certain area, and he said, this is what you would call probably dodgy. But he was South African as well. And he sort of laughed, and he said, well, it's, what they, in inverted commas, would say is dodgy. But I mean, absolutely. You get your, but it is, it's difficult to explain. It is rough. I mean, you've got, parts of South Africa that, townships and what have you, that you wouldn't go wandering into. But it's not really about that. It's about just crime, like home invasion, which will happen even if you're at home. And there seems to be this sort of amoral and indiscriminate violence in South Africa where it is quite possible that someone would come in, rob you, and not just take everything, but kill you as well.
Really? So they'll come into your house, they will steal from you while you're in the front room watching the telly. They'll just come in and like nick a telly from you.
Yeah, and I think they find it easier to do that because when you're at home, your guard is down, and you tend not to have your alarm set or anything like that. So in many senses, you're starting to find that they find it's easier to do that.
You got lions over in South Africa, though, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
I'd have a big kick-ass lion. they wouldn't get in. They wouldn't come in my property if I had a big kick-ass lion.
Yeah, well, interestingly, people obviously use dogs and what have you to.
Nah, dogs aren't good enough. It's got to be a lion or a tiger.
Well, interestingly, they interviewed 100 of the top worst sort of housebreaking criminals in what you would call them, what category you give them, but in jail, and they all said that a small dog inside is the best deterrent. And we had a small little dog, as you know, Dodo.
Yappy things, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, they just pick it up, but the point is that they alert you while you're inside, and whilst the thief or criminal is outside your property, they don't know what's going on inside, but they know you've been alerted.
Yeah.
So you could be grabbing your shotgun or whatever. So for them not knowing is the worst possible thing. So actually a small dog was. And we used to get blokes on the street proposition us for our dog all the time. They say, we like your dog. Can we have it? I'm like, no, you bloody well can't have my dog.
So other than the weather and crime, how is the UK different to South Africa?
Well, and then, the other thing is that the public sector works.
In the UK or South Africa?
In the UK, most certainly. I mean, in South Africa, I'd say that South Africa's saving grace is the private sector, and the fact that there's still a lot of, brilliant, unique people out there who, keep the thing going. But the public sector battles a lot. Understandably, I mean, when the government took over there, they took over a mess, basically. They had so many people disenfranchised without anything that they suddenly had to provide electricity for, water, and of course, when you have this kind of society, you have corruption as well, and so that doesn't lead to the solid functioning of the public sector. So I mean, things, we have they didn't build more power stations, for instance, as they went along. So we have electricity problems. So they got what they call load shedding, which is like 2 hours a day they knock off your electricity. So yeah, I mean that's another difference, and I mean I laugh because so often you speaking to my English friends and they moan about this and that, and I say, well, you got to have a little bit of perspective here.
We moan at everything, British, don't we? We moan at everything, and it's more specifically the weather. I went down the road the other day, and it's been raining here in Cornwall. Not a million miles from London. It's been raining for the last 2 days, but prior to that, we've had about a month and a half of decent sunshine. And there they are, moaning, when's this rain going to stop? Well, come on, open your eyes, guys. We've had two months of glorious sunshine.
Yeah, look, I mean, let's put that in perspective. I wouldn't call it glorious sunshine, but
well, you know what I'm saying.
No, but look, it's. I think it is overplayed. I mean, it's not that bad, But yeah, I'll reserve judgments until summer comes.
So how long did you say you've been living in the UK for?
So I've been living there for about, I'd say 18 months now.
So what do you miss the most about South Africa?
Well, I was going to say biltong, but
we're going to come on to that in a minute.
Yeah, well, my wife actually went and bought 2 kilograms. She lived with me in South Africa for 8 years. So I mean, there's things that creep into your heart, and she loved biltong as well, and so she actually ordered some online because that's the beauty of things now. You see, you can just order these things online. But no, I mean, I'd say the things I miss the most, obviously, are my family and my very good mates.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the good thing about internet is that you can keep in contact with these, but it's never the same, is it?
Exactly. Well, I mean, I work with my brother, and we, as I say, we write software. So every day, I'm chatting to him online, and we crack jokes and that. So yeah, but as you say, I mean, it's not the same as finishing work on Friday and going and have a beer at the pub together, kind of.
So what was it you said you missed the most about South Africa, other than your family and your friends?
Well, as I say, biltong was...
What is it? Tell them at home, what is it?
Well, I know this was battled to it's cured meat. It's basically cured raw meat. A lot of people compare it to beef jerky. And I must confess, I've never really tried beef jerky, but for those people who are...
It tastes like shite, man.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, people who are pure enthusiasts of biltong will say, nah, it's nothing like a beef jerky. But the point is they used it. It sort of came about in what was called the Great Trek, I think, which is when people traveled in ox wagons across the country. And so the husbands would have to go off and do a hunt, and they'd be gone for 3 or 4 days. And so this biltong was like a really good source of food that could last. And so the trick is to spice it up properly, though. But I've got some biltong next door, Mark, so you can you
have to bring it in, mate.
You can brave it and come have a try.
So what is it about you South Africans and barbecues? And we say barbecues, but over there you call it a braai.
A braai.
What I mean, for start off, what is it? What is a braai?
Well, it's a barbecue.
Is it just a South African word for a barbecue, yeah?
Yeah, it's a South African word for a barbecue. I mean, there's subtle differences. I mean, I remember when my wife came over to live, she bought hamburgers to a braai. And everybody stopped and looked at her, and then they looked at me like it was my fault.
This crazy woman.
And I was like, "Well," I just shrugged my shoulders. I said, "Well, don't look at me." And they were like, "How can you bring hamburgers to a braai?" Which is apparently that's okay over here. So there's subtle differences, but no, for all intents and purposes, it's just a barbecue.
I mean, I've got three mates, good friends that are South African, and every single one of them are absolutely amazing on the barbie. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's because it's a different culture. You're at better weather. You're always out on the barbie. You get a lot of
practice, but you see, you've got another South African mate now, which is me, and that's probably going to lower the odds slightly because I'm not that amazing on the braai.
Well, no, I came around your house last year and you introduced. I mean, you were going to laugh at this because you moved in last year. Was it around the Christmas sort of time? Was it? And me and the missus, me and the missus were downstairs. It was tipping down with rain outside. Yeah. It was about 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and I went outside to get some logs for the fire. And I'm like, I could smell like smoke.
Yeah.
I said to Nick, it's me having a fire or something. She goes, no. She goes, it's the crazy next door neighbours having a bloody barbecue. I looked out the window and there you was out in the garden, tipping down the rain, having a barbecue around Christmas time. What was going on?
Yeah, well, I guess that was like, because we had just come over, so I was obviously yearning. And missing it. And also, it could very well have been, the weather comes out of nowhere here. you look at it right now, it's actually sunny, but it's been pouring down the whole day.
Oh, for the last 2 days.
And I came out of my house and I had to walk all of 10 meters here, and I was like, I actually need my sunglasses.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, like you say, this is a podcast, and I know that you're into your podcasts.
Yeah.
You like listening to the podcast. What's podcasting like in South Africa? Is there a niche for it over there?
Well, I mean, there may be. I don't know. I don't know of anyone that actually does podcasts. But it's like that old salesman thing, where he goes to the island and all the natives on the island. 2 salesmen go to an island. All the natives on the island. No one wears shoes, and they're shoe salesmen. And the one shoe salesman phones home and he says, cancel all the orders. No one wears shoes here. And the other shoe salesman phones home and says, bring as many shoes as you can. No one wears shoes here. So maybe it's a bit like that. I don't know enough about it to know whether that there's a strong culture of podcasting. But if there isn't, maybe there should be.
Yeah, get onto it. So what podcast do you listen to? I know last week we was down the pub and we was waffling last week, and you introduced me to the crazy world of, is it Rogan Josh, that Indian?
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan, I'm only jesting.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan. And I was just like, well,
Josh.
I've not really listened to him much, really.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, in a week,
I
am addicted to him.
Yeah.
Absolutely addicted to him. Now, look, one of the things that Karen said on my negative feedback was about me waffling on the mic. And, there's loads of people that say podcasts shouldn't be any longer than 30 to 40 minutes because people get bored and stuff like that. But I mean, this dude, I mean, he goes, his podcasts are about, I don't know, an hour, 2, sometimes 3 hours long.
No, most of them are 3 hours. Yeah, I wouldn't say that I've generally been into podcasting per se, but just the Joe Rogan podcast in particular I've enjoyed because I think it's the kind of people that he gets in. And that's probably an extension of his personality as well, in the sense that he's a curious bloke and he's interested in so many different things, and a lot of it is sort of health conscious. I mean, he comes from a UFC background as well, and in terms of fighting and all of that, so he talks a lot about that, and I quite enjoy that a bit as well. But then he gets scientists on there, and just like it's a bit like going down the YouTube wormhole. And he's not shy of having a bit of a chat about a conspiracy theory or two either, which I quite enjoy as well, without being, I mean, he's very sensible and what have you about it, very scientific I think his interviewing style is just very laissez-faire. It's just very, he just talks to the person, and he's honest. He doesn't pretend to know more than he does, but he's actually a pretty knowledgeable guy. So yeah, I think it's the content that he gets and then the people that he interviews. I just find it very, and I sit sometimes and I take notes. Like if they had, like I was listening to a lady who was a doctor the other day, and she was talking about all these nutritional things, and it's often it's cutting edge stuff. They were talking about how they were prolonging like rats' lives, they were doubling rats' lives and all this kind of thing just through certain nutritional content and what have you. So I'm interested in living twice the lifespan that I can. So yeah.
I mean, like I say, I was listening to him in the week, and just this going out to Catherine now. I mean, I don't know who the bloke is, so I'm not listening to him waffle because he is a big star with 3 million viewers around the world. I listen to him because I like this content, and you can waffle and people do listen, as long as that waffle that you're waffling on about has got content. And unlike me, I'm not reading it and talking like this, and so I'm all changed now. It's new.
Good.
I am who I am.
Good.
But I was listening to him in the week, and he had some dude on that he was talking about coyotes and talking about coyote scat. Got a coyote scat, and they were like talking about basically he was sending coyote scat, old Joe, through the post to his mate to find out, whether it was a coyote or a beaver or something. It's like, He's
was that the one where the bloke he's actually a coyote expert?
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating because they were talking about how the attempt to get rid of them, sort of in a sense, or exterminate them, actually causes them to proliferate because of the nature of them. And this is the other thing I like about, you see, the podcasts are kind of, when you read, and I'm always interested in kind of, or a variation of things, to do with science. And I mean, there's 7 billion people on this planet. We know that it's getting full, so we've got to work out ways of coexisting and existing in a way that's sustainable. And so a lot of that permeates through what he's talking about. It's, as I say, it's cutting edge, and that interests me. And yeah, so the way that, so even the coyote thing, when I saw the podcast, I thought, well, how interesting could this be?
Exactly.
And halfway through, I was enamored.
I was doing my post round because I listen to a lot of podcasts now while I'm working, because I'm able to listen to podcasts while I'm working. And I'm walking around, I'm a post round delivering mail, and I'm like listening to some dude. I didn't have my headphones on, right? Yeah. I'm like walking around with my phone blaring out, and I'm talking to some bloke at the door while listening to Joe Rogan talking about coyote scat. And it's just like, he says, "What are you listening to?" I says, "Joe Rogan Experience. You've got to check it out." Yeah. And I mean, this week he went from that to Steve-O, from Wild Boys and Jackass.
It's such a variation.
That bloke is he is a complete and utter fruitcake, isn't he? But a nice bloke with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot has to do with the fact that his wild days are over, so to speak. He's sobered up and he's cleaned up and all the rest of it. And you can hear that in the way he is, but he hasn't lost that edge. So yeah, I actually haven't finished that podcast. I'm about 3/4 of the way through, but
brilliant, mate.
Yeah, it's good. I enjoyed it.
So, I mean, I haven't got a clue who this dude is, Joe Rogan. I know he's got a name that sounds like an Indian curry. But who is he? I mean, I'm not listening to him because he's big and famous. I haven't got a clue who he is. I like the stuff. Well, who is he?
Originally, do you remember the show Fear Factor?
No, I don't, mate.
Well, the Fear Factor was, you got to have a look at it, really. It was they get a bunch of contestants on there, and then they do something like they do these outrageous stunts. So they'll start off with like a stunt where you've got to go across a tightrope, across a canyon type thing. It's a bit like your Ant and Dec in the jungle. What's it called?
Celebrity. I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here.
It's kind of like yeah, exactly. It's kind of like I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here, but like a lot more intense. So all of these things you see on these shows now where the dudes are eating something ridiculous, it all comes from that, the Fear Factor. And Joe Rogan was the presenter on the Fear Factor. And he was good. He was a good presenter. And he's got this kind of unique voice that he would encourage the contestants while they were doing these things. And come on, man, but anyway, that was kind of where he broke onto the scene. But he was a US Taekwondo champion. Sorry, am I not talking?
No, that's fine, man. I'm just playing along with me, mixing desk, checking that it's all sounding good.
He was a Taekwondo champion, a US Taekwondo. So he's into his fighting, and then he became a UFC commentator. And somewhere along the line, he obviously started doing his podcasts. And I had a mate of mine, a very good friend of mine, who's at university with, much later on, a few years ago, we were living in Cape Town together, and he said, "Oh, you got to listen to Joe Rogan." I said, "Joe Rogan, what, the Fear Factor guy?" He said, "Yeah, you got to listen to his podcast. They're really good." And I actually didn't get into them straight away.
I didn't. The first one I thought was crap.
Time, and then I didn't even listen to them. And it's only sort of recently when I started following a bit more UFC, kind of through the Conor McGregor craze and all that I
crazy dude he is.
Yeah, isn't he just? And a lot of fun though.
Yeah, an Irish dude.
Totally. I'm going, man. So anyway, I sort of came across it, and then I said, "Oh, let me check these." And I go in these YouTube wormholes, I go in these YouTube binges.
I love it. I love YouTube. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I came across that, and yeah, I think a lot of what he has to say, and the kind of his ideas that he's clearly formed through speaking to all these people, are progressive, and some things that I've thought about already, and so they confirm those thoughts, and yeah, it's very good.
One thing I like about him is he gets a lot of people on talking about conspiracy theories. And we had Naomi in last week, and we briefly talked about conspiracy theories. And last week down the pub, well, we briefly started talking about it, and then it just went crazy to a whole new world where I had to drink a few more beers to understand what you was talking about. And I mean, I'd like to talk to about you. I'd like to talk to you about conspiracy theories now. But with 30 minutes in now, mate, we've been talking for 30 minutes, and I just think if we bring out conspiracy theories now,
well, good luck. We No, look, I mean, I have a very kind of, I don't ascribe to any conspiracy theories, but I do enjoy, I mean, my thing about them is like, let's say you take the moon landing, for example, and you look at some pretty compelling arguments against why people would say we never, but my issue is that there's probably 6 or 7 different versions of why we didn't go to the moon. And once you've watched them all, they conflict with each other.
I don't think we did.
Well,
I'm one of those people. I like to look at the evidence.
Look. I think quite simply, if America didn't go to the moon, the Chinese would have told us all about it by now. You know, and this is the other thing. But so many of these conspiracy theories would require, I mean, the kind of scale that you would need to hush people up to keep the conspiracy under wraps is just too great, if you ask me.
I understand that, you know, and the fact that, you know, to have a conspiracy theory, you've got to keep a lot of people quiet.
Exactly.
But I don't reckon we went on the moon because the world's flat. Hey, that in itself, what are they talking about, man?
Again, I mean, you know, look, but I do enjoy watching them. This is the thing, you know, there's something compelling. I think that it's kind of human nature to want to make sure and question the people that are ruling you, so to speak, you know, that you want to make sure that they're not doing anything. And so there's always going to be people that are going to say, well, look, have a look at this. I mean, the one guy was, there's this clip on YouTube, you could sort of have a look for it, and I'll show you later, but he goes through like loads and loads of photographs, just clip after clip after clip. And when you watch it, and it's kind of such a barrage of information coming at you, showing you that, look, the world is flat. Afterwards, you kind of sit there thinking, jeepers, this is fairly compelling stuff. One of the things I laughed at during the thing is that the sign for the UN, and I think the League of Nations before that, or one of the other major world organizations, is actually a flat earth. And he goes and he says, look, they're laughing at you, man. They're laughing at you. You know, and you sort of think, you sit there and think, yeah, well, but you know, look, you just, if you don't want to do the research yourself, you can even just go straight to, or there's a debunk for everything. You just type in flat earth debunk, and then they can debunk the debunk and debunk the debunk of the debunk, you know?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, you could, but I think that independently verifying anything is the smartest way to go before you dive into anything too deeply.
What's your biggest conspiracy theory then? I mean, there's got to be something out there that you disagree with. You know, like me, 9/11. I'm well against. I think it's a total. One day somebody's going to be held responsible. In my opinion, it might be wrong, but there must be a conspiracy theory out there that you totally. Well up for.
Well, I mean, I don't know too much, but I mean, look, there certainly have been things that the Mickey. I mean, I think that, for instance, like the smoking industry knew a lot about what was going on way before they were brought to justice, or that anything was raised about it. Things like that happen as well. I mean, the sugar industry is as well. You know, in fact, I think in one of the Joe Rogan podcasts they talk about how, you know, they actually got people to believe that, I think it was some sort of fat was actually the reason for, you know, all these diseases and all the rest of it. And it turns out that sugar is probably quite high up on the list of culprits. It escapes my mind at the moment. I was thinking about something earlier today, which was actually a fairly solid conspiracy theory. But yeah, I mean, you know, like there was this story about a dude in America who like strolled into the White House with a whole lot of ammunition and guns and all the rest of it, and he was actually pulled over on the side of the road before he went in there, and the cops pulled him over, and it's typical of America. He's got a boot full of ammunitions, and they're like, "Yeah, carry on, mate." And I don't know what, I can't remember what, you know, whether he fired any weapons, but he got into the White House armed to the teeth. And if that's one dude and they can't even see that guy coming, you're telling me that they can spy on you and know what breakfast you're eating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So, but as I say, look, I enjoy me a conspiracy theory.
What I'm going to do, if you're all right with this, is we're going to have a podcast probably in a few months' time on conspiracy theories.
Sure.
And I would love it if you and Naomi, Naomi, who was on last week, she's such an intelligent person. She knows all about her conspiracy theories. And it'd be cool if you two could have a podcast together with me in the studio, and we'll have a little bit of chat about conspiracy theories.
Sure.
And I think probably in a few months' time when, this is the third episode now where I've talked about conspiracy theories, and up at home, they're obviously getting a bit bored of this. So we'll move on we'll move away from conspiracy theories now, and we'll move on to things that people have asked me this week. On my Facebook page. I always put on Facebook.
You're going to ask me some serious questions.
Well, I am. I've got some serious questions from my listeners now.
Okay.
A lot of my listeners, I put on Facebook. I put, what do you want me to chat about this week? And we'll briefly talk about it. And I've had some strange questions this week.
Right.
One of them, Trev, started off saying, all he just put was understanding women. Now,
move on.
Yeah, I think it's probably best to say I don't understand women.
No.
But as I'm getting older, I'm kind of understanding what they require, and I don't mean that in a sexual way, because I understand what they want from you in life to make our life.
Well, I think that's just survival,
easier.
Man. That's just survival. It's like humans are geared towards, that thing that causes you pain. We'll stop doing that.
So we'll slowly go away, fastly go away from that one.
Yeah.
Robin said, she said the state of mental health here in the UK. Now, it's interesting to talk about this to you because obviously you're from South Africa,
right?
And we're going through a real bad stage at the moment with the NHS in this country, and there's just not enough money to do everything, and the mental health care in the UK is seriously suffering. How does it compare over to like other parts of the world, like South Africa and that?
Well, look, the major difference here is the fact that you even have an NHS. Okay, we've got a public health system in South Africa, but it's just vastly underfunded, and it's not even a patch on the NHS, basically. Got to make sure I use the correct terminology and that kind of thing here. But it's not uncommon to see you don't have enough institutions or safe havens, if you like, for people that need to be admitted with. And obviously I'm no expert in this industry, but because you see it in front in your face all the time. You see people, that clearly have. That clearly are in need of some kind of security and protection almost, that have to be looked after by their families and that. So, what happens in South Africa is not a patch on what happens in England. And, the next thing I'll say with a little bit carefully, because, obviously there are people that do need assistance. But I do feel like because you have a system where people can buck the system,
definitely.
They can say, well, you've got these handouts kind of thing, and you see some episodes on TV, where they follow the dude and he's supposedly got like a gammy leg or something, and so and then when as soon as he gets home, he's walking.
He's jumping on his trampoline with his kids. Crazy mother. Yeah,
exactly. So, I think that is probably, it seems to me from kind of an outside perspective that is a constant problem that public finance faces here.
Should the mental health group in this country, should they be funded separately to the NHS or together, do you think?
God, that's a question that completely outside the realm of what I would understand of how the finance is actually disseminated, but I would. Is it not its own branch? Or does it all fall under?
I ain't got a clue, mate.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it should be, shouldn't it? I mean, it should be done separately and work together, because at the end of the day, it all works in the same thing.
Well, certainly it's a completely different field of expertise. I mean, you're not dealing with regular medical doctors. It's not even something that possibly your GP could deal with. It involves psychologists and psychology and a whole different level of recovery. It's a difficult one. It really is, and it is such a debilitating. I mean, we all have. I mean, even I have people close to me that are affected by, sort of brain deteriorating type illnesses, and it's a terrible thing. It really is, and the people undergoing that are scared. They're extremely scared, and they definitely need security.
Well, this quite nicely links into another question that Ben, a work colleague of mine, brought up, and I thought I wanted to get Ben in the studio next week because it is over in the UK. It is Mental Health Awareness Week. Month. The month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And Ben does suffer with mental health issues. So I'm going to get him in the studio next week, and we're going to talk about schizophrenic sufferers and issues, because I feel that he can relate to it and talk to me more about it. So that's Ben next week.
Sure.
He has been on the podcast before with his band, not him talking, but I have played some of his music from the Ben. They're called the Ben Roby Band, and I'll put the link to that band on my show notes. But he's coming in next week, and we're going to have a little bit of chat about mental health and stuff like that.
And you raised something there, and that's that, like, there's so many different levels, of mental health and categories as well, levels within the categories. Maybe it ought to be a completely separate thing. Really.
I mean, we here in Cornwall, there's a big river between Cornwall and Devon, between the counties, and crossing it, there's a world famous bridge called the Brunel Bridge. It's a bridge that there's a train that goes over it. Next to it, we've got the Tamar Bridge, two very tall bridges, and we're forever seeing people jumping from the bridges and sadly taking their lives. This week, we've had a 30-year-old man from not a million miles from here, literally about 2 miles down the road. I don't know the chap, but he had a wife and I do believe 2 children. Sadly, took his life this week. And
I heard a bit about that. I mean,
it's so sad.
They've got those arches on the bridge, and he walked up the sort of, well, not the arches, but the suspension.
Yeah.
Parts of it, and as you were saying before the podcast, actually, we're talking about making the gates higher. And interestingly, we got where my mum lives in South Africa, in a place called Port Alfred. There's a bridge there with archways, cement archways, and also have a problem there where blokes, from time to time take their own lives. And what they did was they put grease up the archways. I guess if somebody really is determined to do it, they're going to find a way.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because I did have a couple of listeners say to me, Mark, I want you to bring up, because one of the things they talk about doing on the Tamar Bridge is perhaps putting gates or where you walk through your public walk path, actually putting like a cage so you can't jump off the bridge. Or perhaps another option has been at separate stages on the bridge, put a telephone call so that you can ring the Samaritans. Now, as much as these are good ideas, I think we want to be looking further afield here. Well, and you've got to ask yourself, why in society are there so many males, a lot of males from 30 to 40, why is this in society? Why is there so many youngsters taking their lives? And not only that, in schools, why are there so many children, and on this front, mainly females, self-harming themselves? This is what we've got to be looking at as a society. Forget about putting stuff on the bridge, because at the end of the day, no matter if you put grease or cages, if somebody wants to jump off the bridge and they can't jump off the bridge, then what they'll do is they'll go and just chuck themselves in front of a lorry. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Something's seriously going wrong in this country.
Really, I mean, as you say, putting up telephones is not a bad idea, because maybe, maybe you're always only one telephone call away from. I mean, think about how often you're having a bad day and you phone someone that like I phone my mum, probably a bit cliche, but it is what it is, and I'll have a chat to her and I'll feel much better afterwards. And so I mean that might, but putting up more gates and higher cages and grease and all this kind of thing, that's just kind of treating the symptom in a sense. Like you want to be tackling the cause, and I mean there's got to be a million different reasons for that, but that's what people study these things for. Interesting, like if you just look at sort of mice studies and that, if they take a box,
you're loving mice at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on, but I do always find it fascinating that there are so many correlations, and that we as humans like do so many studies on mice to figure out our own behaviors, but you can actually see why in a sense, but yeah, so you throw a whole lot of mice into a box where there's not enough space, and they just start going moggy and like killing each other and become murderous and stuff, and it seems to be almost like the world is full of pressures now. You can talk about
we're so angry.
Well, yeah, exactly. This is what I'm saying. There's but you see the difference between mice and humans is obviously that we have consciousness. We're aware that we're aware, and so that manifests in different ways. And so you find people self-harming and killing each other. And look, as I say, I'm not an expert, and that's a very broad brushstroke, but it is. There are an immense amount of pressures facing youngsters, adults to survive and make it in the world. And it's not just about survival. It's about, your status, because that's just as important. They talk, I remember at university we used to study this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and how you first need shelter and warmth, and then you need the next thing. And at the top of the pyramid is status, so you have your position in society. Well, there's the studies going around now which are saying, well, actually it would seem that your position in your social status, your position in your social surroundings is seemingly just as important as the simple fact of having food and shelter and warmth. So yeah, I mean it's likely that those things would affect people neurotically 100%.
Don't worry, be happy. We've all got it. And guys, the reason why I say that is because there is a lot of stress in the world at the moment. People, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. You don't know if your next door neighbour is in a bad way, and we've all got to look after one another. And if you see somebody I saw on the news the other day, there was a chap in Manchester that was riding his bike to work, and there was a woman beside the road that was ready to jump in front of a bus or something, and he stopped and he was there for 40 minutes laughing and joking with her to make her in a better place. If you are in that situation where you see somebody, you've got to love thy neighbour. Do you know what I mean? Look after them and cheer them up, and we're all here to look after one another. Just be happy.
I think you're right. I think a lot of it is connection. Is that people just need to kind of reach out to each other a little bit more, and you see it. I mean, you especially see it when you go to a busy place like London, and people are like rats. I mean, like mice. You climb on the tube and you do your thing, and you go to work and you get back on, and if you were to take a time-lapse camera and look at it from the top, you would just see little things scurrying around. And yeah, so, the story you talk about the bloke in Manchester, you're talking about England and as South African coming to live in England, I'll say that about English people. You say English people moan in that, but English people, in my experience, are actually, South Africans are very guarded, and it's because of the security issues we have, and even guarded against your neighbor. Whereas here, people do extend to each other. They're very, English people are extremely polite and friendly. And I think that's a very good thing. And it's something English people can be proud of.
I think since the war, since during the war, things have changed in that communities aren't like what they used to be. People are a lot more have not got enough time. They're constantly running around doing jobs and stuff like that. And I know I'm 40-year-old now, and once upon a time, you'd walk down the street and you would know everybody in your community. Everybody would speak. Everybody would chat. You'd stop, give 5 minutes, love thy neighbour kind of thing. And
It's a cultural thing.
It's kind of slipping away, especially in the big cities. You know, you don't know the people you live next door to. You don't give a toss about the people that you live next door to. And it's
and you put your earphones on. And look, I mean, I'm a techno freak. I love my technology. But yeah, I mean, there is an element of disconnect involved in that. Like, you know, as I say, you get on the tube, you put your earphones in, and you cut yourself off. Like,
self-destructive impulses of human existence. That's what Jeffrey's asked us to talk about.
Right.
Now, I mean, we're waffling on a bit now. We got to start wrapping things up here. But are we gradually destroying the world?
Well, I mean, yeah. Look, there's certain behaviours that we seem not to be able to stop doing. If you look at like Easter Island, Easter Island is the island that's completely barren, but it's got these statues, these face statues that just stand up, almost look like dominoes, kind of going on. And sort of as they've unpicked the mystery and uncovered it turns out that like they cut down in order to move these things around, they had to cut down the trees so that they could roll these statues on the trees and that. And it became such a kind of hysterical behavior for them that they just didn't stop until they had smashed all the resource on the island and either had to move off or died off, or I don't know what the ultimate thing was there, but and you kind of worry that sort of is happening with planet Earth, but I'm sort of more optimistic. I think that there's enough people that are worried about it, or intrigued even, that are trying to solve the problem. And I think that people are becoming far more conscious of how to make. I mean, I've spoken to you about it before, about how I think houses are becoming almost production units on their own. I mean, you think about 3D printers and the fact that we're doing this podcast in your house, in your living room. You know, the capability of a house to become its own sustainable unit is becoming far and far greater. So you can have your solar panels on your roof. And I think moving ourselves off renewable energies is got to be a huge factor in that. I'm optimistic and positive about what we can do, but that doesn't mean we can sit back and say, well, you know, don't worry, somebody's going to take care of it. I mean, everybody has to do their little thing. But yeah, look, and you can take all of these things on a macro scale, right down to the micro scale, and say, you know, people have that kind of self-destructive thing within themselves. You know, most people, not all, most people can kind of control that. We were talking about Steve-O earlier. Certainly for the first part of his life, he probably couldn't control it, but he's learned to, and probably that same narrative you can extend to humanity in itself. The time will tell, but yeah, I sure as hell hope we make it.
Get on to any podcast server, host, and check out Joe Rogan, and get on there and check out his interview with Steve-O. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was laughing for 3/4 of the way through. Other parts of it, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah, is that
when
real?
He was talking about doing, you know, that you get those nitrous oxide cartridges, you know, and when you go to festivals, you did like that, inhaling. How many did he do in 2 hours? 600?
Yeah, he said something. It might have been in a day, but yeah, it was an inordinate amount. I think it was in the hundreds for sure.
Anyway, mate, I think we're gonna wrap up here because my feedback this week is gonna be, Mark, you're waffling more than ever.
you probably be your feedback. Your neighbour's waffling more than ever, but.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you in the studio.
Thanks for having me,
mate. And
I love your setup here. It's good.
Thank you. It'll be better once I get down in my recording studio downstairs and get it all finished. Well, get it started. But that's a different matter.
No, thanks for having me.
Thank you much for coming in, dude. And I will see you very, very soon.
Cool.
Head is working out. chemicals are fine. 'Cause this is therapy. This is therapy.
That was Plastic Solar Therapy. Don't forget to check those guys out, and Armoires and Huxley Rittman. They are currently, very, very, very currently at this precise moment on their UK tour. And like I said, details and links to all of that are on my show description notes. Bit of a longer show for you guys this week. Hope you enjoyed it. Special thanks to Blaze for joining me in the studio, and a special thanks once again for you guys at home for listening in. Don't forget to leave me some feedback at jaff10@hotmail.com. You can find me at Mr. Jaff10 at Twitter. Look me up on Facebook. You know how to get there by now. And check me out on my website, www.jaff10.simplesite.com. We are also on YouTube, iTunes, and Mixcloud. So don't forget to check it. Check it. Don't forget to join me next week when I interview Ben Roby from the Ben Roby Band, and we are going to be talking mental awareness, because it is Mental Awareness Week here in the UK. So until then, I'll leave you with this. Look after yourselves and others. And remember, your life may not be as crazy as you once thought it was.